There was a very good question one day on a forum saying, how can one be both religious and spiritual? And a whole conflict somewhat sparked up because a lot of people consider that religion and spirituality are the same exact thing. This is somewhat as far away from the truth as possible because, mechanically speaking, both are exact opposites. While religion in the end is somewhat of a finalized construct, which throughout the time that it's been around, I'm talking specifically about the Abrahamic religions, they have not changed that much. Maybe some adaptations here and there, but the pride of each and every religion and its long standing usually reside within the fact that they have not changed much. Yes? Christianity may have split into thousands of mini beliefs, but more or less they're still all centered on the teachings of Christianity because, well, the teachings of Jesus are, well, what Christianity considers the most. I'm not sure about Judaism and Islam, but I heard from some Muslim friends that I met throughout my life, and the newest one that I have, that Islam has not changed much throughout the time. So they are somewhat of a very, not sure if stable would be the best term, but they are somewhat very, um, they are somewhat of a simple way of looking at life. In the end, they are stories based on one simple truth. There is something beyond you and beyond your existence that has created all this entire existence, all this set of possibilities that technically this cosmos represents. On this planet, unfortunately, we have been living in somewhat of ignorant means of life, but there are cycles of life where both individually and at a larger scale, planetary and obviously solar system scale, there are influences of, let's say, cosmic energies that will drive everything in there through these cycles of going upwards on the ladders of consciousness and then obviously downwards because this is how life will unfold. You cannot become pure without exploring all the miseries that there are possibly there in the world. And you cannot become a criminal without knowing some of the purities of the world. Yes? Because, see, the bigger problems in a society are not necessarily psychopaths, sociopaths, and the such. Those have their own breaks, but those broken parts of them rule most of their existence. The most dangerous people are the ones who have always had extreme empathy and a capacity to read your emotions. When you piss those people off enough that they break, suddenly you are not facing some people who have something broken within them or more splinters, but those usually induce a compulsive behavior. Because a compulsive behavior means a set of repetitions, a set of patterns. They may be well disguised, but when you look, for example, at the evils of the world, they never seem to have changed. It's always the same exact strategies, because consciousness follows nothing else but patterns. Depending on the layer of awareness that an individual is in, and certain cosmic influences as well, there will be specific behaviors that uh, individual will experience, yes, or even lay manifest into the world. So when it comes to the world, religions in the end are somewhat of a stable structure, let's say. Yes, they have some set stories, they have some morals, which I consider their greatest weakness, and well, they have certain other aspects within them teachings, virtues, whatever. Spirituality is something that I consider very similar to programming. Yes, because you can create your own practices, but one needs to have a certain opening. One needs to have some initiation, obviously. Yes, religion is something that is a finite product. It tells you exactly how it wants you to be, what it wants you to be, what rituals you have to do, then this and that. While at the same time, it doesn't promise you realistically nothing. Yes? It will tell you that you will live eternity in some heaven or in some hell, but while presented as some kind of geographical locations, you don't get any idea of where the hell those are and, funnily speaking, whether they exist or not. Yes? Any question you ask about religion will be simply met with nobody being capable of answering. Because, you see, religion and philosophy are not much of a different concept, and to a certain extent, even science. Throughout history, we've seen that sciences have been more or less a philosophy. Back in the times when technology was not advanced enough to observe something, at least a pattern recognition was seen in nature, and a certain truth was accepted. Yes, for a longer period of time, it was more or less a philosophy. Nobody knew necessarily how to prove it, yes, but at the same time, well, it was accepted. Nowadays, it is a common fact that, well, gravity exists, while still science fails to be able to pinpoint exactly the source of gravity and what exactly it is. Well, obviously, you cannot deny its existence. Similarly, with religion, you cannot deny the existence of creation. Now, you can simply deny the fact that creation would be one single man. Yes, just how you cannot prove that God is a man and just one single being, obviously, you cannot prove that there are multiple beings instead. Because creation is something beyond this cosmos. And obviously, if it is beyond this cosmos, it is beyond all the possibilities that your mind, your senses, and everything that you are representing of and capable of perceiving, well, it will be beyond that. So try as you might, with religion or spirituality, you're free to believe in whatever shape or form you want. Obviously, religions have this narcissistic tendency that you have to focus too much on them, while spirituality is not something that forces you on anything. Spirituality teaches you to look inward, while religion teaches you to look outward. Yes, you need a priest or an imam or a rabbi to connect you to creation. Yes, you can only be connected to creation through these people. They are the so called communicators with God. But throughout life, these religions have had the biggest flaw unfortunately exploited. See, in a sick society, narcissism and sociopathy and other such behaviors will tend to acquire control over everything. Yes, especially narcissism, because it craves places of power. More or less psychopathy as well, but narcissists usually tend to do more damage because they are more prone emotionally, while psychopaths just tinker plans and master plans and execute them, usually taking somewhat more or less, in different cases, obviously, more time. Yes, while narcissists are always hyperactive and they're usually interested in doing as many things as possible, and it's never enough. Yes. So the biggest flaw that I've seen throughout my own perceptions in religion is them placing a high importance on morals. See, when you look at religion, if we speak about a sick society, a religion in a way feels like a mockery of you as a human. When we look from a perspective of a society that is, uh, let's say, not necessarily enlightened, but that has normally functioning individuals, it is just a reminder of your morals. Yes, because let's say, take the only religion that I know more about, and let's say Christianity. Yes, it has the Ten Commandments, which technically, if we compare it a bit, are similar to the halal and harams of Islam. There are things that you are allowed to do and that you are not allowed to do. Yes. And it says, do not believe in false gods, do not do this, do not steal, do not harm. Yes, things like these, they kind of end up more or less being and sounding very moral. Yes. And well, in a sick society, obviously they will be used as kind of a mockery. Yes, it's what I call the chastity effect. Yes. Now, chastity in this point of view is something that blocks you from a certain perspective. And whenever you are blocked from something, obviously your mind will become more perverted in that direction. Yes, it will want you to crave more that which you supposedly do not have. Yes, and let's not forget that religions have had a very bad influence on people. Because people in time, the more they became alone, the more they craved attention. The more alone you become less capable of thinking that you actually are worthy of other people's attention. The more you feel distanced from these people because of loneliness issues, you feel that you're less and less worthy of other people's attention, comes a big problem. Your awareness dims so much in time that you will only perceive things through sex, because sex is basically the lowest form of experiencing in life. Yes? So the point is, sexualization somewhat becomes a problem. Now comes the other part, which I call the chastity effect. Because religions, they all say sex is bad. Yes? But if you ask them why sex is bad, well, they will either not know how to explain it, they won't probably want to explain you, or simply some of the people, usually throughout the times people were illiterate, wouldn't simply comprehend. From a spiritual perspective, obviously, sex is a very damaging aspect, especially if done with the wrong kinds of people, because each and every person has a very unique energy that represents them. And this energy is not compatible with any other living being that you have here on this planet, especially the closer they are to you in terms of evolutionary process. Yes? That's why even when you're eating meat, spirituality says preferably eat meat that belongs to animals further away from you in terms of evolution. Because eating mammal food, for example, all mammalians share kind of a very similar structure when it comes to their hormones. When you kill an animal, there are all these people, even in religions, that fantasize all things and imagine things that, if you kill an animal, you blindfold it and you kill it, it's more humane. No, it's not humane at all. Okay? When you have severed their head or killed them in any way, shape, or form, irrespective of whether it was done quickly or not, you fail to comprehend life because you see that body as nothing else but food. That body has a very complex functioning, just like yours. The moment the cut is made, the entire body suddenly secretes and eliminates a lot of fear hormone. Yes, it is a near instant, um, let's say, action. Let's put it so. So when you're eating meat, you're eating both those feelings of fear, of abandonment, of uselessness. And guess what? Mammalians have very similar emotional structures. Now that you ate pig meat or cow meat or any other mammalian that you can think of, yes, those emotions and those hormones are very, very similar to yours. It is common, as even science presented, that people who eat meat, especially a lot of meat, suddenly feel anxiety attacks. Yes, fear attacks. But they're in their bed at night, they're calm, there's literally no challenge, no problem, no anything. Yes, no threat. But suddenly they feel these because sooner or later, the information that you put into your body, or well, energy if you want to take it into account, well, it has to be disposed of sooner or later. Yes? Your mind also cures itself of all the thoughts and things that you put into it and that you thought about but never actually realized in action. And that's how you get dreams. Yes, some of those ideas will dissipate and the mind will clean itself of those, and it will occasionally be remembered as dreams. We can dream a lot of times, but we don't always remember our dreams. Yes. Dreams are usually a representative of somewhat active or hyperactive minds. The more meditative one becomes, it is said that they will dream somewhat less. But this may obviously differ per individual. So when it comes to religion and spirituality, no, they are not the same thing. They are completely opposite aspects. Now there is this hideous thing that I keep hearing from other people, that they say they have been born in a certain religion. I'm not sure how people have poisoned your mind, but see, you are not born in any fucking religion, okay? You are simply born here into this world. You're born butt naked, you don't have any clothes on you, yes? So physically, you came butt naked. your mind also came butt naked as well. You did not have any attachments towards ideas or any preconceptions or things like that. Yes, you are not born into a religion. A religion was simply um, put into your mind by your parents because they have lived by it, and obviously they would prefer that you live by it as well, or in some people's cases they would impose it on you because, well, a lot of people, they live by this principle. Whatever they believe in, they identify so strongly with it that it becomes part of their life. It's like if you give up on that, they feel like they would die. Yes, it happens. It is one of the pitfalls of your own system. See, on this planet, one has to comprehend we as humans have a huge potential compared to animals. Each and every animal typically will identify with their own race, and by design, they know what their enemies are, what they can eat, what they cannot eat. They do not need a religion, yes? They do not need something to tell them how to live, yes? Because that's why I said previously that a religion can also be looked at as a mockery of life. Because if you are conscious enough, you're not going to need the moral part of a religion. Yes, especially in a sick society, placing your value and your entire structure on morals is not the best thing because people will end up with distorted versions of that specific religion. Yes, because to some people, genocide might be fun. To some people, it might be horrible just because other people will suffer emotionally. To some people, it might be horrible not because of other people's emotional suffering, but because of the years in prison that they might get. Yes? Now, these are just little splinters, little examples of how morals can be shaped. Yes? Because in the end, a moral is basically something that you base your life on and that you take as guiding principles in life. Not the brightest definition, but it is something like that. In a sick society, where people are illusioned with all sorts of things, their minds are very vibrant and teeming with ideas, and they're constantly distracted in something. Yes, what have we become nowadays? And not just nowadays. It's just repeating history. See, animals, each and every animal identifies with its own race. Now we have humans that identify as animals or whatever, well, they seek, whatever they choose, whatever they feel like. Yes? You do not have to identify with any religion. Yes, sure, nobody says that you're forbidden from doing your own points, or whether you look at another religion, you become suddenly a danger to your own. Yes, these are just old fears of the predecessors. Yes, where they suddenly feel endangered. They feel that it is horrible to even think about another religion because of um, the separatist nature of what each religion has become. Yes, and this idea of constantly living in survival, you feel that the whole world is against you, so you have to separate yourself from it. And then obviously you will suffer from different things, and abandonment issues will hit very hard. Yes, these will just lower your awareness, and you will simply, well, experience living hell. Yes, because nobody has probably told you that hell and heaven are just states of awareness here in this world. When you feel ecstatic and joyous, it's like you're experiencing heaven. When you feel depressed, down, and in pains, maybe, that's like exactly like experiencing hell. Yes. So hopefully this video raised a bit of awareness. Yes, you are not born ever in a religion. Maybe it was drilled into your head at an age where you had no awareness and you simply embraced it and ended up attached to it or ended up replicating your parents' behavior. And maybe you reach a very advanced age before you can ask yourself, why are you so obliged to obey to some rules that don't necessarily suit you? Because in sick societies, everything will tend towards communism. Yes, because that is the wet dream of narcissists. Everyone functioning the same, everyone thinking the same, everyone being the exact same, which means we can easily control the masses with the easiest and slightest bit of effort possible. Yes, that's technically what communism means from a psychological perspective in a certain society or in a certain group of people. If you look at religions carefully, they tend to have this somewhat of a communist approach because they all prefer that all their followers behave this way, must do these, you're not allowed to do these, and this and that. And when you look at a lot of people, they seem or tend to have a very similar mindset. When you are surrounded by people with very similar or extremely similar, if not the same beliefs and way of action in life, you might actually be in a prison instead of, an environment. Because in any environment you go, it is always preferable to surround yourself with people who also think at least to a certain extent different from you. Yes, it's obvious to trigger people and to piss them off just because you think otherwise than them. But finding those people who can think otherwise than you do, maybe they have a different religion as well. Yes, and you can discuss with them without, escalating into drama and such. Those are very valuable people because when you're surrounded by fuckers who think the same, aren't you there in a cage? Yes, everyone functions the same. So in the end, sooner or later, their perception of life, their points of view, their ideas will more or less become to you indistinguishable from reality. And you're gonna end up in that primitive mindset where you cannot ever accept anything else but that which you have become accustomed to. And this also becomes a big problem because in the end you became accustomed to something. But let's think a bit more about something. You became accustomed to that, but now it is also your comfort zone. So obviously you'll fight even harder for that. Yes, that is the problem with a lot of religious people. Because religion in the end is nothing without meaning. It is nothing but a bit of meaning, a set of meanings. Yes, all the teachings, all the virtues, all the things like that, they are meaning that we require to live anyways. Yes, spirituality is not about meaning, it's about shutting the fuck up and letting silence allow you to finally commune with parts within you that probably religion would never tell you about. Yes, or maybe some of those few priests, imams, and or rabbis that they're not just those physical dwellers. Yes, they don't just dwell in the body. They can definitely tell you pieces of advice beyond the flesh, beyond the mind. They can give you pieces of advice about spirituality, because in the end religion is a gateway to spirituality. It is just a safe net. Yes, you can never fail in religion. You have everything put at your disposal. In spirituality, it is always hard to start because where do you start? Spirituality means detaching from the mind. The more you detach from the noise of the mind and from meaning in general, the more spiritual you'll become, the more calm you'll become. Yes? You can pray religion in a noisy environment. Yes, you can do your prayers in a somewhat noisy environment or in a calm one, but it's hard to be spiritual in a noisy environment. Yes, so each has its own. Each of these two paths has its pluses and minuses. Yes, and in the end, one does not have to view one superior to the other or one, problematic or things like that. Each of those is a path in life. Some people do not wish to seek spirituality because they are what I call excessive physical dwellers. They feel that they are here to experience just a physical part of life, which is nothing wrong about. Some people just want to experience higher dimensions of life. So, in the end, this cosmos has everything that one may need. Yes? So, hopefully, this video raised a bit of awareness. You are appreciated, take care, enjoy life, and this being said, Ferenc on board signing out.